You're running out the door for work, school, a workout, a hiking or camping trip, or to check off errands on your daily to-do list. As you're rushing around the house to leave, you realize your stomach is growling. Ugh, no time. Well, worry's over. No need to stress over something you can solve in an indulgent yet healthy but sustainable way. Homemade granola bars. I'm going to show you how. A favorite quick snack in my household is a homemade granola bar made using whatever ingredients I have in my pantry and fridge. You might be surprised at what I've put in my granola bars over the years. Today though, I'm sharing two of our many favorite no-bake granola bar versions. Check these out: chocolate chip cashew granola bar and almond strawberry granola bar. Let me just say, no chocolate chips, no cashews, no almonds, no strawberry, no problem. I have tons of suggested options in my recipe linked below this video that are fantastic. If you have some oats, a nut butter, and nuts or seeds, you can make a protein-packed satisfying treat. Everything else added simply just tickles your taste buds. For my put a smile on your face, I'm a lucky person treat, let's look at our ingredients. For my chocolate chip cashew granola bars, you'll need dates. Medjool are top notch. Maple syrup or honey, any nut butter. I'm using homemade cashew butter for this recipe today. Any unsalted and unroasted nuts or mixed nuts. I'm using cashews today. Rolled oats, salt, vanilla, and mini chocolate chips. This recipe is such an indulgent, dense, hearty snack or meal replacement. You can substitute almost any of my ingredients for whatever you like or have in your pantry. In fact, I have used raisins in place of the dates. Talk about cost cutting, and the bars still tasted fabulous. So let's first chop our nuts. So you're gonna need 1 cup of nuts. Again, you can use any nut you want. I like cashews in this recipe, so I am using cashews. I've also used peanuts. Works just as great. We want to rough chop them because we want to have more of a small bite-sized piece and chunk. Now we're actually going to toast our nuts in this recipe. You don't have to. You could totally do this raw, but I love to toast my nuts and granola bars because toasting them gives off a nice smoky flavor, and then of course the heat from the oven releases some of the oils, and it just of course makes them nice and tasty. Okay, notice the size of them. They're small pieces, but we've got a few bigger chunks, but that works for me. Let's go ahead and roast our nuts and oats first. So let's preheat our oven to 350 degrees. And I am using my toaster oven because everything heats up nicely in that little small space and everything fits in my nice toaster oven pan. So that's where we're going to put our nuts and our oats. And we're gonna add our 1 cup of roughly chopped nuts, like so. We have a lot of little pieces here, so we'll just want to make sure that we don't burn our nuts while they're toasting. And then we're going to add 1.5 cups of rolled oats. You don't want the quick cooking ones because we want a little bit of chewiness in our bars, right? I have also used peanuts, pistachios, and almonds in this recipe. I imagine mixed nuts would be good too. Try to use unroasted, unsalted if you can, but whatever you have will be fine. If they're unroasted and unsalted, that means you can control everything that's going into your bar, but that's totally up to you. And you probably don't need the extra salt that we're gonna add if you're using salted nuts. I like to shake the pan a bit just to disperse everything and try to get it into a single layer. And then we're gonna place the baking sheet, because the timer just went off, in the oven, and we're gonna set it for 12 minutes. But you wanna shake the pan at the halfway point about 6 minutes just to move the nuts and the oats around and make sure that nothing is burning. If you do have some that are burning, just remove them from the pan and put them aside. While our nuts and oats are roasting, we gotta prepare the dates. So if you're using medjool dates, if you have them more at room temperature, they separate very easily because you have to take out the seed that's on the inside. And you could use a knife if you want to do this. I find my hands just work easy. You don't really have to use a knife. We're going to add a heaping cup of dates. And a heaping cup of good large medjool dates is about 8 or 9. Notice how quickly and easy they just tear apart. If you have your dates in the refrigerator, they're going to be stiffer, and so they may not tear as easily. So you'll need to use a knife. For me, that's 9 dates. And then we're just going to discard the pits. Our nuts and oats have been in the oven for 6 minutes. I just want to shake them around. Back in for at least another 4 to 6 minutes. For our dates, we're going to place them in a small food processor. I'm just using a mini chopper here. It works just fine because we don't really have that many dates. And really all we want to do is just pulse these and run the machine enough so that these break up into smaller pieces. Be easier to mix in our granola bars. Okay, notice they've broken up into pieces, but they've also become one big mass chunk of sticky looking dough. They're broken up and they separate pretty easily because they're in pieces as they form the sticky mass. I have also used a knife and chopped these up by hand and didn't use a food processor. So if you don't have any kind of a processor, just use a knife. Okay, I've just taken the nuts and oats out of the oven. They were in there roasting for 11 minutes. So notice how the smaller pieces in the center have certainly browned, but they're not burnt. We're gonna need a large bowl to mix everything up. So while our nuts and oats are still warm, we're just going to place them in our bowl, and we're gonna add a pinch of salt. And I have 2 fingers and a thumb, and that's how much salt I put in. A pinch is all you need. We're talking probably 1/8 of a teaspoon, if that. And then just with your spatula or spoon, just sort of mix it all up so that we have any concentrations of nuts, oats, or salt before we add our sticky mass of dates in a second. All right, that's pretty much it. Okay, so you remember the dates that we broke up here? Well, it's time to add those. All we need to do with our dates is just sort of break them up and scatter them over the nut mixture. And we're gonna be massaging them in a minute anyway because they don't really get mixed up so well with a spoon. We'll try it so you can see what it looks like, but I usually just resort to my hands. Just want you to see what it looks like if I use a spatula. They do break up some. When we add the rest of the ingredients, this will all come together into a nice sticky bar. So let's add the ooey gooey flavorings. I'm gonna spray my measuring cup here because I wanna put some sticky butter in it. We want the sticky butter to come out easily. So for this, you need a 1/4 cup of nut butter. You could use peanut butter, just whatever nut butter you have on hand and whatever you like, something you're not allergic to, hopefully. And then I'm actually using the cashew butter, that homemade cashew butter that I made last week for my previous video, so you can see the link below. If you want to make your own nut butters, I have 3 recipes there for you using almonds, cashews, and peanuts. So we're going to put a 1/4 cup, and I'm going to put it in a separate bowl. Notice how easily that came out. And we're also going to equal the amount of sugar we add to it. So a 1/4 cup, I'm using maple syrup here. You could also use honey or any other liquid preference that you have, like agave syrup, as long as it's a liquid sweetener. That's kind of the key here. If you notice, my nut butter was soft, but when I put my nut butter in this container, if it had been harder because I'd had it in the refrigerator, put it in the microwave for 15 to 20 seconds to soften it up before you try adding the sweetener and then mixing it up. It might be a little harder to mix up if it's a hard consistency butter. So notice how it's mixing up fairly smoothly here, so I don't need to heat mine up at all. Okay, look at that consistency. Okay, it's nice, it's fairly smooth. To that, we're gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. You could use other extracts if you prefer. And then again, we're just gonna stir it all together because this is it of the ingredients that are of liquid in nature, are very, very soft. We're gonna add our nut butter mixture. And then just try to break everything up and mix it together. You of course could use your hands, I've also done that. So notice all of the mixture is combined. We don't have any leftover nuts or oats at the bottom of our bowl. And I didn't even use my hands for this one. It was all the spatula. Okay, this is where we're gonna add the chocolate chips. I intentionally saved the chocolate chips for the end because the mixture is warm and I don't really want my chocolate chips to melt. So here's a trick that I figured out in making these bars. is that you put your chocolate chips in the freezer for about 30 minutes before you mix them into your mixture, and that way it keeps them cold. You don't have to worry about them melting so much. I am using 1/4 cup of chocolate chips here. You can add more depending on how much chocolate you actually want in your recipe. And we want to mix these up pretty quickly because we don't want to give time for those chocolate chips to melt. So you're going to need an 8 by 8 inch baking pan and either a piece of foil or parchment paper. That way it's easy to lift out our bars before we cut them. And we're not baking anything here, we're done, right? So now all we have to do is put them in here and then they go in the refrigerator to harden up. So just take your granola bar mixture, just place it in your foil lined container. You can use plastic wrap too here actually because you don't have any heat going on to melt it. And then just press it down. Make sure that you compact everything together because we want all the ingredients to stick together. And we kind of want a uniformed height to them all. So you could take your spatula, which I usually do when I come back after I use my fingers, get the corners and the edges so you don't have any random pieces that fall off. You take these bars out of the pan and you're just gonna conform the bars into the shape of the pan. A nice square. So there we are, our first batch, chocolate chip cashew granola bars. All that's left is to cover the dish, place it in the fridge for a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes so that the bars firm up. Then you can remove them, cut them, however you want, and enjoy them. Let's move on to my second recipe I want to share with you today. For my almond strawberry granola bars, you'll need dates, still my preferred, but raisins also work here. Honey or maple syrup, any nut butter, I'm using homemade almond butter, unsalted, unroasted whole almonds, rolled oats, salt, strawberry jam, and almond extract. As with my chocolate chip granola bar recipe, you can substitute almost any of my ingredients for whatever you like or have in your pantry. You can also mix up the nut butters and nuts. Almonds with peanut butter, cashew butter with peanuts. You don't have to use the same butter with the same nut. I have mixed them up so many times and they still produce a great granola bar. This recipe has the same directions as the chocolate chip granola bars. The difference is different ingredients. So go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Again, we're going for the toaster oven because we have the same amount of ingredients and they all fit in that particular oven. Okay, so this recipe, we're gonna measure out the same amount of ingredients as we did in our last one. So we're going to use a cup of whole almonds. We want them untoasted and salted if possible, and whole is best. That way you can control how much you want them chopped up. So we're just going to rough chop these, and then we're going to add 1.5 cups of oats to our ungreased pan and roast just as we did before. You need 1.5 cups of rolled oats. Shake the pan to disperse everything out. Place the pan in a preheated oven for 12 minutes at least. Shake the pan at 6 minutes and then keep an eye on it to make sure that your nuts and your oats do not burn. Cashews tend to brown a little quicker than almonds, so you might need to leave your almonds in the oven a little bit longer than we did with the cashews, but just go based on smell. If they're smelling burned, they probably are. So take them out before you smell the burn. And then just keep an eye and make sure they don't go any darker than a nice golden brown. While our nuts and oats are in the toaster oven, toasting up, let's prepare the dates. We're doing the exact amount that we did before. 1 heaping cup of dates. Cross them into small pieces or chop them up with a knife. 6 minutes, time to shake up our nuts and oats and put them back in the toaster oven. Time's up, nuts and oats are roasted. I left these in the oven for 15 minutes because almonds are a little hardier. It can stand a little bit longer heat. So now they're ready to go into our mixing bowl. Since my nuts are unsalted, let's go ahead and add a pinch of salt. Again, I'm using 2 fingers and my thumb. Time to disperse the dates. Okay, it's flavor time, so let's add the ingredients. This is where our recipe varies from the chocolate chip. And I'm using homemade almond butter that I made last week. And I actually made this butter on my video for homemade nut butter, so feel free to check out that recipe online. Notice that. We're gonna add 1/4 cup of nut butter. You could use store-bought peanut butter. It's whatever you have access to that you want to use. And we're gonna put them in, oh, look how easily that came out of since we sprayed our measuring cup. So 2 hours softened nut butter. Again, I'm spraying my utensil here because honey's gonna be really sticky. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of honey. So notice we're having the same amount of nut butter that we did in our previous recipe. And I'm also gonna add the same amount of sweetener as the previous recipe. It's just that I would have 2 tablespoons of honey and then 2 tablespoons of jam instead of 4 tablespoons of maple syrup. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of jam, and I'm using strawberry jam because I want the strawberry flavoring. You can use any other jam that you want. You could probably put dried apricots here in this recipe and then use apricot jam or any other dried fruit that you like, and then you find a comparable fruit jam. And then finally to this, I'm gonna add 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract just to bring out that almond flavor. You don't have to use almond extract if you don't like it. You could also just use vanilla. I love the strawberry preserves in this because you can see the chunks of strawberries. So now let's just pour it all and let's mix it up. The bars are all nice and mixed up. Notice they're all sticky. We don't have any loose nuts or oats at the bottom of this dish. So it's ready for the pan. I would imagine that you could put some white chocolate chunks in here. White chocolate chips would be really good in this particular recipe. The almond, the strawberry, and the white chocolate, that sounds good to me. All right, let's put it in the pan to cool. That's all we need. The bars are done. We can put them in the fridge, cover them as they are. However, I'm feeling a little bit, I don't know, fancy right now. And I just found a white chocolate bar in my pantry. So I want to melt some white chocolate and we're just going to drizzle over the top. I think that'll make this really pretty. So I just heated up this little bit of chocolate that I had in the microwave for about 20 seconds and stirred intermittently. And I don't know, let's try this. And as it sits in the refrigerator, it will harden on top of the granola bars. So it shouldn't be ready or break when we go to cut them. But normally I just make the granola bars as they are without any of the chocolate on top. But like I said, I just found this, thought, why not? Might be a little fun. And I just used about half of a box of chocolate to put on 8x8 inch pan. So all that's left, I'm just gonna cover it, put it in the fridge for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then they'll be ready to cut and taste. Both pans of granola bars are cooled and ready to cut and eat. When you're in a rush, it's easy if you can just cut them up ahead of time, package them and ready to go so you and your kids can just pull them out of the fridge, throw them in a bag, and they're on their way. So here's how you can easily cut and store your granola bars for easy accessibility. So notice how easily that fold just comes right off. I like to cut mine in squares. I cut 9 bars, so I'll get 3 in this end, 3 in the center, and 3 on the end. So try to do it like cut it in thirds. And notice how easily they just break apart. And they pick up and they're all together. Usually what I do is after I make them and store them, I'll do an assembly line of a couple pieces of plastic wrap that you see here. Then I'll just take a bar, put in the center, wrap it up like this, the ends at the top, fold down, and then fold under. And then I just store them in plastic wrap like that, and I do that for all of my bars. Another way you can store them is if you don't want to use plastic wrap, just get a nice container, cut them up. These are some bars I actually made last week, and they don't stick. And you can store these the same way I did with the plastic wrap or in its container. Notice the little strawberry jam, strawberry poking out there? It's nice. That's what we wanted, because we wanted that strawberry look to it, right? All right, so let's cut the chocolate chip in half. Take a look at the inside. It's nice and sturdy and dense, just like you would expect to see in a granola bar. You can see some date pieces, you can see the chocolate chips, you can see some of the chunks of the nut, and you can see those little white slithers are all oats. Same thing, chunks of nut, oatmeal, You can see a little bit of the strawberry, and of course you've got some of that date as well, and then the chocolate on top, very nice. Okay, let's try the chocolate chip cashew. I can taste the chocolate chips, but because we used the semi-sweet small ones, they're not overpowering. I can definitely taste the nut from the cashew, but I love cashews and it's not very strong. I love the sticky dates in this recipe because the sticky dates really does bring everything together. It gives you that nice punch of sweetness. And you may think of dates and go, oh, dates, but they're just sweet. I mean, that's what you taste, is like a sweet, sugary, fruit. That's what it is. And the butter is not strong, but it's great holding it all together. And I like the maple flavoring because the maple, not necessarily the flavor as much as it is the sweetness of the maple. So this is a nice sweet granola bar. It'll curb your sweet tooth and chocolate craving as well. All right, I'm gonna try the almond strawberry granola bar that we added the chocolate at the last minute. It definitely tastes different. You might not think so because it has the same base, but I can taste the almond, and I like the almond butter. And if you add a little bit of flavoring, like some spices to your almond butter, it's not overpowering in a granola bar. So it's just as good even if you have a little bit of cinnamon in it, which is what mine is, but you don't have to have that. Again, the dates are nice and sticky and sweet. The almond extract, everything just blends really well. Nothing is overpowering, nothing is really strong. And I like that little bit of chocolate on top too. It just feels indulgent. Two great granola bars. I highly recommend you try them. Again, put the flavors in that you want. You can store these in the fridge easily for a month. Yes, you can. You can also keep them in the freezer for much longer. Regardless, store them in a sealed container or in plastic wrap. Scott and I really enjoy these granola bars. I have made them so many times for work, hiking and cycling trips, as well as for airplane travel snacks. They taste great and satiate you for long periods of time. You don't feel crummy after eating them like you do when you eat a candy bar, and they are just as indulgent. If you can find 30 minutes to spare this weekend, make a batch of these granola bars. Use your preferred ingredients to please everyone in your family. You'll be happy knowing your family is eating well and no one is starving. Thanks for watching. If you think of some other great granola bar additions or combinations, leave a comment below and share them with the rest of us. There really isn't a right or wrong ingredient as long as you enjoy it. Until next time, spare some time and whip up a hearty snack. And as always, go bake the world.